You've probably tried everything to let go. You've talked about it with friends, maybe went to therapy, tried to forgive, tried to forget, tried to just move on, and nothing worked. Here's why. You're trying to change your feelings instead of changing the belief that's creating those feelings. And there's one specific belief that makes letting go feel impossible. I'm going to show you exactly what it is and how to destroy it. Look, I'm not going to waste your time with feel-good nonsense about how time heals all wounds or everything happens for a reason. That's garbage. What I'm going to show you is the exact psychological mechanism that keeps you stuck, the irrational beliefs that make letting go feel impossible even when you desperately want to move on. By the end of this, you're going to understand something most people never figure out. You're not holding on because you're weak, or because you love too much, or because what happened was so terrible. You're holding on because you're demanding that reality should have been different than it was. And that demand, that one word should, is creating all your suffering. I've spent over 40 years helping people with this exact problem. And here's what I know. The people who can't let go aren't the ones who went through the worst things. They're the ones who are engaging in what I call masturbation, telling themselves things must be a certain way, people should have treated them differently, life has to be fair. Once you see this clearly, and I mean really see it, letting go becomes simple. Not easy necessarily, but simple. Because you'll stop fighting reality and start accepting it. And acceptance is what finally sets you free. So let me tell you about the one belief that keeps you stuck. The fundamental reason letting go feels impossible is because you're engaging in demanding this. You're telling yourself that things should have been different, must not have happened, or the person had to treat you better. This transforms a preference into an absolute demand on reality. And that's where all your suffering lies. Now listen carefully because this is important. It's perfectly rational to prefer things had gone differently. It's irrational to demand they should have. You see the difference? When you say this shouldn't have happened, you're arguing with reality itself. And reality doesn't care about your shoulds. It just is what it is. Let me give you an example. You can prefer your partner didn't cheat on you. That's completely reasonable. But demanding they shouldn't have, that's where you create your own torture. Because they did cheat. That's reality. And no amount of should ing is going to change that fact. This is what I call the ABC model, and it's going to change everything for you. A stands for activating event. That's the breakup, the betrayal, the loss, whatever hurt you. C stands for consequence. That's your inability to let go, the rumination, the emotional suffering. And most people think it causes C. They think the event directly causes the suffering. But that's wrong. B is what causes C. B stands for belief. And the belief goes something like this. This shouldn't have happened to me. They must not have done this. It has to work out. See what's happening? You're taking the activating event and running it through a belief system full of demands. And that's what creates the consequence of not being able to let go. Here's why your brain keeps replaying it over and over. Every time you think this shouldn't have happened, your brain treats it as an unsolved problem. It's trying to find a solution. But you can't solve it because you're trying to change the past. The replaying is your mind trying to find a way to make reality different. It's like sitting there arguing that 2 plus 2 shouldn't equal 4. You can argue all day long, but 2 plus 2 is still going to equal 4. Now I want you to listen for specific language in your own head. Words like should, shouldn't, must not, has to, can't stand. These words signal you've moved from preference to demand. There's a huge difference between I can't stand that they did this and I strongly dislike that they did this. One creates torture. The other creates disappointment you can actually move through. I worked with a woman once who couldn't let go of an abusive ex for 10 years. 10 years. And you know what kept her stuck? She kept saying he shouldn't have been that way. And she was right morally. He shouldn't have been abusive. But demanding that reality be different, demanding that this man who clearly was abusive shouldn't have been abusive, that kept her imprisoned and suffering for a decade. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine you hate rain. You really hate rain. Is it okay to hate rain? Sure. But imagine you stand outside in the rain every day screaming it shouldn't rain. It mustn't rain. Rain is awful and terrible and shouldn't exist. Are you going to stop the rain? No. Are you going to be miserable? Absolutely. That's what you're doing when you can't let go. You're standing in the rain of reality, demanding it shouldn't be raining. I had a client who couldn't let go of losing his job. He'd been fired and he kept saying my boss should have been fair, my boss had to treat me better, this shouldn't have happened to me. And yeah, maybe his boss was unfair. But demanding fairness from someone who clearly wasn't fair, that's what kept him stuck. Not the firing itself, the demand. Now you might be thinking, but Albert, what they did was wrong. I should be able to demand they treat me better. And you're half right. Let me explain why this thinking keeps you imprisoned. Yes, you were wronged. Yes, they should have treated you better morally. I'm not disputing that. But holding on to the demand that reality must conform to your moral standards, that's what creates your suffering. You can acknowledge wrongdoing without demanding it shouldn't have occurred. See the difference? There's a huge confusion between moral rightness and psychological health. Being morally right doesn't reduce your suffering. They were wrong to hurt me. That's a valid judgment. But they shouldn't have hurt me, therefore I can't move on. That's self-torture. Justice and inner peace are separate things. Let me ask you something. What's the cost of being right? Every minute you spend proving they were wrong is a minute you stay stuck. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting them to die. You need to be validated as right becomes a prison. And here's the kicker. They've probably moved on while you're still fighting a battle that's already over. This connects to something I call low frustration tolerance. You keep telling yourself, I can't stand that this happened. But that's almost always false. You're standing it right now. You just don't like it. See, you're confusing I don't like this with I can't bear this. And that creates helplessness. When you tell yourself you can't stand it, you make yourself fragile. You turn yourself into someone who can't cope with disappointment. But you can cope. You are coping. You just keep telling yourself you can't. And that makes everything harder. Now here's something really important. There's a huge difference between acceptance and approval. Accepting what happened doesn't mean it was okay. It means acknowledging reality as it is, not as you wish it were. This happened, and I hate that it did. That's acceptance. This shouldn't have happened. That's denial of reality. You can't change the past, but you can stop fighting it. And that's what acceptance does. It stops the fight. Let me tell you about the time I got robbed. Someone stole from me, and I could sit there forever demanding the robber shouldn't have stolen from me. I could say thieves must not steal. This is terrible. This is awful. How dare they? But criminals do criminal things. That's what makes them criminals. Demanding that a criminal not act like a criminal is insane. It's fighting with reality. Think of it like a courtroom. After the verdict comes in, you can keep demanding it should be different. You can refuse to accept the ruling. But that doesn't change the verdict. It just keeps you stuck in the courthouse forever while everyone else goes home. I worked with a man who held on to anger at his parent for 30 years because parents must love their children. That was his demand. And yeah, ideally parents should love their kids. But some parents don't. That's reality. And his demand that reality be different, that his parent must have loved him when clearly they didn't, that demand tortured him for 3 decades. He only found peace when he accepted that some parents don't love their children, as horrible as that is. Okay, so if demanding things should be different is what keeps us stuck, what about all these feelings you're having? Don't they mean something? Let me talk to you about the emotional trap. Your intense feelings aren't proof that letting go is impossible. They're proof that you're believing irrational thoughts. Feelings follow beliefs. Change the belief, and the feelings change automatically. This is crucial to understand. I feel like I can't let go doesn't mean you actually can't. Feelings are not facts. They're the consequence of your beliefs in that ABC model I told you about. Your emotional brain is reacting to your irrational thoughts, not to reality itself. You wouldn't trust feelings that tell you you're worthless. So why would you trust feelings about impossibility? Your feelings are the C in the ABC model. They're the consequence of B, your beliefs. They're not telling you the truth about reality. Here's what you're doing. You're engaging in what I call awfulizing. You're not just saying it's bad. You're saying it's awful, terrible, horrible. You're rating the badness as 100% when it's really maybe 60 or 70%. This is the worst thing that could happen, you tell yourself. But is it really? Is it really the worst thing? Or are you catastrophizing? Catastrophizing makes normal pain feel unbearable. It takes something that's bad and turns it into something you tell yourself you cannot survive. But you are surviving it. You're surviving it right now. And then there's the self-downing. I'm worthless without them. That belief makes letting go feel like death. But you're confusing rejection with worthlessness. They didn't want you doesn't equal you're defective. Your value as a human being isn't determined by any single person or situation. Let me give you what I call the relief test. Imagine for a second that you magically believe this. It happened, I don't like it, but I can handle it and move forward. Just imagine believing that instead of this shouldn't have happened. Notice how much lighter that feels. Notice the relief. That relief you're feeling is proof. Proof that your beliefs are creating the suffering, not the event itself. You have more control than you think. You're not a victim of your feelings. You're creating your feelings with your thoughts. I had a client who felt he couldn't live without his ex. Those were his exact words. I can't live without her. But he was literally living without her while saying this. He was breathing, eating, going to work, living his life. So clearly he could live without her. He just didn't want to. And that's very different. Here's an analogy. Quicksand. The more you struggle in quicksand, the faster you sink. Demanding reality be different, that's struggling. But if you stay still, if you accept where you are, you float. Acceptance is staying still. It keeps you from sinking deeper. I worked with someone who had panic attacks. She felt like she was going to die every time. The feeling was intense. But feelings of doom aren't predictive. They're just consequences of catastrophic thinking. Once she learned that, once she stopped treating her feelings as facts, the panic attacks lost their power. Now here's where this gets really practical. I'm going to give you the exact process to start letting go, starting right now. Letting go happens through active disputation of irrational beliefs. You don't just decide to let go. You systematically challenge and replace the demanding thoughts that keep you stuck. Step 1. Identify the demand. Write down what you keep thinking about. Find the should, the must, or the have to in the thought. For example, they shouldn't have left me, or I must get them back, or this has to work out. Be brutally honest. What are you demanding? Step 2. Challenge the demand. Ask yourself these questions. Where is it written that this must be so? Who says reality has to conform to my preferences? Where's the evidence that this shouldn't have happened when it clearly did? Am I confusing what I want with what must be? The universe doesn't follow your rules. It doesn't care about your demands. Accepting this is freedom. This is where the power is. Step 3. Replace the demand with a rational preference. Take they shouldn't have hurt me and turn it into I very much wish they hadn't hurt me. But people do hurtful things, and there's no cosmic law that says I must be exempt. Take I can't stand this and turn it into I don't like this. I hate that it happened, but I clearly can stand it because I'm standing it. Take I'm worthless without them and turn it into I'm a fallible human who got rejected, which sucks, but doesn't determine my worth. Step 4. Practice acceptance statements. Say these to yourself over and over. This happened. I wish it hadn't, but it did. They did what they did. I don't have to like it, but I don't have to keep fighting it either. I can survive this disappointment and still have a good life. Accepting this doesn't mean approving it. It means acknowledging reality. Now here's the thing. You've practiced irrational beliefs thousands of times. You've told yourself it shouldn't have happened thousands of times. So you need to practice rational beliefs just as much. You need to dispute the demand every single time it comes up. This isn't positive thinking. This is reality thinking. What do changes look like? Not sudden peace. Not forgetting. You're going to see a gradual decrease in emotional intensity. Less rumination. Less replaying. You'll be able to think about it without spiraling. And more moments where you're not thinking about it at all. That's progress. I worked with someone who used this exact process to let go of a 20-year marriage ending. She went from crying every single day to genuine peace in about 3 months. Not because she forgot, not because it didn't matter, because she stopped demanding reality be different. Think of it like building muscle. You're building rational thinking muscles through repetition. Every time you dispute an irrational belief, you get a little stronger. Every time you replace a demand with a preference, you get a little freer. Now let me address the biggest objection you probably have right now. You're thinking this sounds too simple, too cold, too logical. You're thinking I'm telling you not to have feelings. Let me tell you why that's exactly wrong. This isn't cold. It's compassionate. True self-compassion isn't indulging irrational beliefs. It's freeing yourself from the demands that create suffering. Being gentle with yourself means not forcing yourself to carry unnecessary pain. People think being hard on irrational beliefs is being hard on themselves. But actually, your irrational beliefs are what's being hard on you. Real compassion means not letting yourself suffer needlessly. You poor thing, you're torturing yourself with these demands. That's compassion, helping you stop the torture. And listen, you can grieve and let go. Sadness about a loss is normal and healthy. It's appropriate. Demanding the loss shouldn't have occurred is what prevents you from moving through grief. I'm sad they're gone. That's appropriate grief. They must not be gone. This can't be real. That's stuck in denial. Acceptance allows you to grieve fully and then move forward. It doesn't skip the grief. It moves through it. Here's a question people ask me all the time. If I let go, does that mean I never love them? No. It means you're not holding your past love hostage to current suffering. You can honor what was while accepting what is. Letting go of the relationship doesn't erase the good parts. Real love doesn't require torturing yourself. This connects to something I call unconditional self-acceptance. You are a fallible human who experienced a difficult thing. Your worth isn't diminished by loss or rejection. You don't have to be perfect or never get hurt to be valuable. Accepting yourself unconditionally makes letting go of external validation possible. You are not what happened to you. You are a person to whom things happen. That's a huge difference. I worked with people grieving deaths. The ones who demanded they shouldn't have died, those people suffered longer. The ones who accepted that death is part of life, that everyone dies eventually, they grieved deeply, but they moved through it. Acceptance doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't fight with reality. Think about a loving parent. A good parent doesn't let their child keep touching a hot stove just to validate the child's belief that it shouldn't be hot. The parent says, yes, I know you don't like that it's hot, but it is hot, so stop touching it. That's love. Real love protects you from unnecessary suffering. I had a client who thought letting go of anger at an abusive parent meant excusing the abuse. She was terrified to let go because she thought it meant saying the abuse was okay. But she learned acceptance doesn't equal approval. She could accept that her parent was abusive without saying it was acceptable, and that freed her. All right, let me give you the final piece, because there's one last trap that catches almost everyone. It's what I call the secondary disturbance trap. Often the biggest obstacle to letting go isn't the original hurt. It's getting upset about being upset. You disturb yourself about your disturbance, and that creates a second layer of suffering. Here's what it looks like. The primary disturbance is being hurt by what happened. The secondary disturbance is saying, I shouldn't still be upset about this. You're now demanding you must be over it by now. And this creates shame, which makes letting go even harder. You're applying the same demanding thinking to your healing process. It's been 6 months. I should be over this. It's been 2 years. What's wrong with me? Who says? Where's that rule written? Healing doesn't follow arbitrary timelines. Demanding you heal faster just creates more suffering. Progress happens when you stop demanding it. What's wrong with me that I can't let go? Nothing's wrong with you. You're believing irrational thoughts. That's all. Criticizing yourself for having irrational beliefs is just another irrational belief. You're a human learning to think more rationally. That's completely normal. And here's the irony. Patience with yourself actually speeds up the process. The solution to secondary disturbance is to accept that you're having trouble accepting. Yes, really, I'm still upset about this, and I wish I wasn't, but there's no law that says I must be over it. Remove the should from your healing journey. Focus on disputing the primary irrational beliefs without beating yourself up. Progress, not perfection. I always say the best years of your life are the ones in which you decide your problems are your own, not something being done to you. Your own responsibility. That's power. Think about spraining your ankle. If you sprain your ankle and demand it should heal faster, does that speed up healing? No. It just adds frustration on top of injury. Same thing with emotional healing. I worked with someone who spent years upset about still being upset about her divorce. Years of being angry at herself for not being over it. Her breakthrough came when she accepted, I'm struggling and that's okay. Once she stopped fighting herself, she actually started healing. So let me bring this all together for you and give you the exact path forward. Here's what we've covered. Letting go feels impossible because you're engaging in demanding this. You're insisting that reality should be different than it is. You're confusing preferences with absolute demands. And every time you tell yourself this shouldn't have happened, or I can't stand this, or I need them back, you're creating your own suffering. The way out isn't to stop caring or to forget what happened. It's to accept reality as it is while still preferring it had been different. It's to acknowledge that yes, you were hurt, but no, the universe doesn't owe you exemption from hurt. It's to rate things as bad or very bad, not awful or catastrophic. And most importantly, it's to separate what happened from your worth as a human being. You let go by actively disputing your irrational beliefs. Every single time you catch yourself demanding things must be different, you challenge it. You ask where that rule is written. You replace the demand with a preference. And you do this over and over until your brain learns a new pattern. Will it be easy? No. Will you do it perfectly? Absolutely not. Will you sometimes fall back into demanding thinking? Of course. You're human. But will it work if you stick with it? Yes. Because you're not fighting against some immovable force. You're fighting against your own irrational thoughts. And thoughts can be changed. Here's what I want you to do right now. Take one thought you keep having about whatever you can't let go of. Find the demand in it. The should, the must, the have to. And spend the next week disputing that one thought every time it comes up. Not 20 thoughts. Just one. Challenge it. Replace it with a rational preference and see what happens. You got this. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're just human, and you're believing some nonsense that's keeping you stuck. Stop believing the nonsense, and letting go becomes not just possible, it becomes inevitable. And if you're wondering what to do when you've let go, but you're afraid of getting hurt again, there's something I need to tell you about the irrational belief that destroys more new relationships than anything else. It's the belief that you must protect yourself from ever being hurt again. And it's complete garbage. I break down exactly why this thinking sabotages your future in my next video. Click it now, because what I'm about to tell you will completely change how you approach new relationships.